Hey everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. My name's Mike Gibb. I run accountsrecovery.net, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar where we're talking about the benefits of minority business enterprises, talking about trends and opportunities. Diversity and inclusion are more than just buzzwords. They're good business. Minority-owned enterprises are playing an increasingly important role in today's financial ecosystem, offering innovative partnerships, new market perspectives, and pathways to meet corporate diversity goals. As more clients and government entities prioritize working with certified minority business enterprises, the opportunities for growth and collaboration are expanding. So today, in this webinar, which is being sponsored by Payscout, we've got a panel of industry experts here to explore the benefits of becoming or partnering with an MBE in the credit collection space. Our discussion is going to cover emerging trends, how certification can create a competitive advantage, and what companies should know to navigate the process. As I mentioned, this webinar is being sponsored by Payscout. Payscout is proud to offer a full range of payment processing services to the ARM industry. All products and platforms are fully compliant to statutes, regulations, and contractual requirements that impact collection agencies daily. Whether you choose traditional card payments, 360-degree fee-free payments, or the new first-party biller option, Payscout provides seamless integration to your existing systems and processes either via its strong vendor partnerships or directly through the proprietary Paywire gateway. As an MBE certified organization in various regions, they bring both expertise and purpose to every partnership. This opens new doors for businesses seeking to expand in state and local government, transportation, healthcare, education, telecommunications, and tax and collections, connecting partners to meaningful growth-focused opportunities. As a diverse certified partner, Payscout has access to contracts and opportunities across key industries in the state and local government space. You can learn more about them by visiting them online at payscout.com, or you can click on the link I just dropped in the chat to access their website. Let me introduce you now to our panelists. Cleveland Brown is the CEO and co-founder of Payscout, a payment processing company that has been servicing various merchant verticals with a particular focus in the ARM industry. Payscout's been the leading service provider for nearly 2 decades and is a minority and diverse certified enterprise within various regions. Cleveland began his career in 1992 at Union Bank of California, focusing on the financial side of payments and technology. In 2008, he founded Payscout Limited International, followed by Payscout LLC in 2011 with Marpreet Singh, combining domestic and global e-commerce payment solutions. He is the board chairman of Cyberdyne, specializing in XR and VR commerce payments, and the co-founder and chairman of Payverse, a fintech company enabling global commerce for international cardholders. Cleveland also served on the board of the Valley Economic Alliance, supporting economic growth in the San Fernando Valley. Michael Lamm is a founding partner of Corporate Advisory Solutions, which is a respected and fast-growing merchant bank that supports a select group of clients with offices in Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. Michael's completed more than 100 M&A engagements in the ARM industry and leads his deal team on M&A engagements, compliance and regulatory assessments, valuation, and expert witness litigation matters, while also charting the firm's corporate direction and strategic growth plan. Sean Williams is the CEO and co-founder of Williams Rush & Associates, a minority-owned receivables management firm based in Dallas, Texas. With experience in the collections industry spanning 27 years, he started as a collector, working various roles in operations before he obtained his MBA from Texas A&M University. With a focus on entrepreneurial and small business operations, he went on to become the co-founder of Williams Rush & Associates in 2011. Sean and his team operate a client-focused collection agency which specializes in collaborative collections. They obtained their DBE and MBE certifications as a minority business enterprise in the North Central Texas region in 2017. Everybody who's watching us live today is absolutely invited to ask questions and submit comments during the course of our conversation. You can use the chat or the Q&A to submit your questions and comments. If you would prefer to participate anonymously, there is an anonymous option in the Q&A that you can push. And if you do that and send us something that way, I promise you everything you send us is sent anonymously. Okay, first, so let's set the scene. I've mentioned it a couple of times in my introduction, but first, just to kind of get a sense, what is an MBE? And maybe talk a little bit why it matters to this industry. Sean, you logged on last, so you know that means I'm going to pick on you to go first. You're on mute. Sean, you're on mute.
All right, there we go.
There we go. Now we can hear you.
We're logging on last. Okay. Morning, everybody. MBE, Minority Business Enterprise. And this is certification that we received, a couple years ago. And we got it to kind of take advantage, or not so much take advantage, but to find partnerships, partnerships and companies that are looking to, partner with minority-owned enterprises, companies. I feel like that, minority-owned companies bring a diverse perspective, to a partnership, So that's what I think. That's one of the things, I think one of the main things that we add, to a partnership.
Yeah, and I could just jump in. Kind of, by definition, it's a certification for businesses, and it's owned by individuals from minority groups. And, as Sean said, to promote diversity in business opportunities, it's to increase access to government contracts and corporate procurement. Uh, and it's issued not only on the government side, but they're also issued by private agencies across the U.S. And the benefits at the end of the day for an MBE cert is access to contracts, access to bids, networking opportunities, recognition as a diverse supplier, which we'll probably talk about, um, and alignment with corporate diversity initiatives, as you talked a little bit about earlier, Mike, and focusing on that particular criteria. When you look at minority can mean many things. So when we talk about an MBE, a minority could be race. You can have a WBE. It could be by gender. There's just there's a host of different categories. Sean talked about a DBE as well. The main point of this is that it's 51% owned and managed by that minority group, and you must be able to provide the required documentation. We can get into that in terms of what it means to be an MBE, which, for us, there's a lot of work. I know Sean is certified in Texas. We're certified. I think we're covering now 17, 18 states through
Wow.
agencies. So there's my take on MBE.
Yeah, Mike, it's Michael. I'm so glad we're doing this type of webinar because so many people don't know what the MBE is and how it can be utilized. And when I got into the industry 20 something years ago, I remember going to, it may have been Verizon or AT&T, and they all these large institutions, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, have all these programs for minority owned companies or leveraging minority owned suppliers as a part of their vendor management protocols. And as I started learning about it, it started becoming eye opening that so many companies didn't even realize that this type of these types of businesses exist out there. Because what happens a lot of times is, let's say a government entity puts out an RFP, and as a part of that RFP they say, hey, are you an MBE, or do you work or do you leverage any suppliers to your company? They're an MBE, and it becomes an important piece to how they decide on what vendors to utilize for certain programs or workflows that they have set up in their big organizations or government agencies. So that's how I started learning about it, and I felt it was important to start telling our industry more about it too, Mike.
You mentioned states, you mentioned regions. How does the MBE process work? Is it something it's not a nationwide sort of certification?
Yeah, I can jump in on part of it. It's very interesting how it works. So basically, there are different groups that do the certification that represent different, it could be state, cities, multiple states, regions when it comes to supplier development. So there's the National Minority Supplier Development Association. So that's kind of this big umbrella there. And depending on your company and region, what they do is they'll help you figure out what supplier certification is best. And you go through this process. Give you an example with Payscout, as I told you. In California, where we had to certify with the Southern California Minority Supplier Development Group. When we did that, certification, we did that certification with Metro here in California. They're the group that handled the certification. So it's not like there's a supplier diversity office in the case of California. You go to Metro, you go through a process. City of Philadelphia, there's the OEO program. In Pennsylvania, we went through the Department of Transportation, which is PennDOT. Uh, as Sean talked about, Texas Unified Certification Program that just encompasses the state of Texas. New York City has their own MBE program. Nevada has a DOT program. So it's fragmented.
Very
Yeah, in terms of how you get the certification, and maintaining the certification is kind of a yearly process. There's a lot of documentation involved, a lot of back and forth, but we have the path uh, pretty laid out now within our organization.
Okay.
One of the things I always wondered is, in the course of us, dealing with the certifications, why there's no federal MBE certification that would kind of unify everything and kind of make it a lot, basically streamline it, because like Cleveland was pointing out, in order to get certified in different states, you have to go through, and sometimes it's like Texas, it's not a state, it's just the region. We're in the North Texas Central region. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're in Houston or you're another part of the state, it's a different certification process with a different certification agency.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I apologize if I'm missing any or some of the point here, but it seems to me that the primary objective for an MBE are you mentioned sort of the partnership opportunity, Sean, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So partnership opportunities that, for companies that are looking to work with MBEs, and as an MBE, partnership opportunities that might be open to you. It flows both in both directions, right?
Yes. I think it comes
Yes.
down, for us, it comes down to relationships. It's trying to build relationships with some of these companies that, otherwise we wouldn't, have an opportunity to do that, and it kind of, the benefit goes both ways.
Okay. Cleveland, I'm wondering, is there like a success story maybe that you can share from your experience?
Yes, I mean, the success always comes from I guess failure. Let's start with that. Meaning
My kind of
that
success.
so I think there's this misconception that, hey, I get this certification as an MBE or DBE, and there's going to be this windfall of contracts and deals that are going to fall into our lap, which is quite the contrary. So initially, when we finalized the certification, we were looking at the RFPs that were available, and we spent a lot of resources and time responding to the RFPs with crickets in the background after we sent these RFPs in. And basically what we came to understand, and Michael talked about it earlier, is that the success for us came from understanding that we do not have to be the face of an RFP, and that we can work with organizations that are experts in RFPs. They have teams, they have resources that they put behind these, and reputation within these agencies of how they earn these contracts in this business. And what we found is by partnering, either partnering with them, basically we piggyback within the RFP process with them, or that's one part of the success story for us. So we've been able to do that utilizing the MBE. But more importantly, we're able to take our partners, meaning, on the payment side, we work with integrated software vendors, as we know are required within our industry. So we're able to take those integrated software vendors bundled with our payments and present them into the RFP process where they do not have the resources or never could actually break into these particular industries. They might have a great piece of software sitting there, but there's no way to get this software into an RFP or getting it used by these larger agencies. So for us, we've seen success for us jumping into these RFPs, not being the face, and then bringing our partners along into these contracts to showcase their products and services.
Is there a is when you talk about the partnership, if you have a partnership that and someone you're bringing in, is it more than just a handshake? Does there need to be some sort of like documentation, or is it a formalized partnership? Like, how does that part actually work?
Yeah, so it is a formalized partnership. So to give you an example, if we take one of our integrated software vendors that come into our ecosystem, Payscout has a partnership with them and it is formalized. By formalizing that partnership with us, then once we have that in place and it is contractual, then we're able to bring them into the RFP process.
Okay. So we're seeing, I think, armed companies, more of them are getting involved in working with local, state, or the federal government, especially as a means of providing collection services. We're seeing a lot of RFPs coming out from local, county, state governments seeking collection services. How can MBE companies be helpful to those companies in seeking those contracts?
Well, I'll chime in, Mike. I mean, a lot of those are RFP driven. So the city of Philadelphia or the city of Los Angeles will put a bid out there. And in that bid, it'll specifically say, as a part of the bid, number one, are you an MBE certified business, or are you planning to work with any MBE partners? Well, as you can see, as we just discussed, this is where the value could be additive as it relates to their bid on the RFP, because a lot of times when I talk to a lot of the players in state and local government, collections, student loans, a lot of them are not very familiar even there that there are MBE certified companies that are in our industry. And so you're looking at two right here. So it's why it's important to make people aware of it, because it could help them enhance their bid in the RFP process as a part of their collections proposal that they're making.
Good, that's good information, because one of the challenges that I think that we've seen in this process is that once we got the MBE, we didn't know what to do with it. Honestly, I mean, it didn't come with any instructions, and we did some RFPs on our own. But as far as the partnering part, that's something that's just kind of brought to our attention just recently. That's the quickest way or the best way or a way. It was told to me from several different sources, that's a way that you can kind of get in on some of these RFPs that you might not, qualify for, is through these partnerships. But I'm telling you, it didn't come with any instructions. So it was like a lot of trial and error and still trial and error.
What is that? Maybe talk a little bit about that trial and error. Like how did you go about learning this process? And so, you mentioned there was no instruction booklet. What have you learned? What do you know now that you wish you knew back then?
Well, I wish I had access to Mike Gibbs' webinar back then. First and foremost, back in 2017, this right here, would have helped. But one of the things that we didn't do, and I've been kind of reaching out lately to get some more information about this, is that the North Central Texas, the regional certification company or whatever that we go through, they have a lot of events. They have a lot of events. They have a lot of events that we weren't, we were not participating in. And I used to get those emails all the time and just kind of overlook them as spam, because they sent out quite a few. But those are very helpful, as far as making, meeting people and making the relationships and the introductions and things like that you might not have gotten, just cold calling. So I think that's something that we're utilizing now, to try to get our foot in the door.
Yeah, and not only Mike Gibb, also to have a Michael Lamm. So that's that conversation. I had conversations with Michael uh, even a few years, going a few years back in regards to MBE certification and learning about it. So one of the things that helped us is, one of the things Michael did is introduce me to individuals and companies that were already working with RFPs and MBEs and DBEs with uh, government agencies, different verticals. But nonetheless, I was able to get information about that because historically we were not. We didn't have the certification. It's fairly recent for us. We're just under the impression that if we have the best product and service and we present it in these RFPs, we're going to get the business. And as I said, that did not happen. But kind of the thing that I would have helped us is us understanding payments and collections and that intersection within RFPs and these government contracts. And then where did the MBE and DBE kind of play a role for us strategically? And that's kind of what we've been doing. We're doing with Michael. We talk about it all the time in terms of strategically what's the best approach. So, for us, really, if we had to go back, it's just having a more defined strategy around what we do rather than the general MBE kind of DBE perspective.
Yeah, Mike, I didn't even realize, I don't know if as you think about this whole MBE ecosystem, there are actually investors, private equity, family offices, high net worth individuals that exclusively invest into MBE companies. And so there's a whole other angle for companies that are in the MBE ecosystem that exist too. So it's an interesting part of it as well, because a lot of these companies are growing and are looking for capital too, and they've got an MBE fund or investment fund in order to help these companies grow as well, which is pretty neat.
Good information.
Yeah, and I could probably even compound that with when we think about, like as Michael talked about, like having an MBE is part of an RFP or contract. Contracts also focus on other criteria, government contracts. So you might have eco-friendly as a checkbox. You might have reducing carbon emissions. You can have a veteran-owned business, female, like there's local hiring requirements. There's so many different boxes that come with these RFPs, even above and beyond an MBE, is that when you're able to combine the check boxes, so as you go through an ISO certification, a SOC 2 certification, a PCI certification, there's all these different certifications that may be required as we jump in. And the more boxes for us that we can check or help our partners check, the bigger advantage they have of earning business working with these agencies.
Point of clarification with respect to the MBE, because it's region specific or state specific, does it only apply in those areas if you're certified? Like, those 17 or 18 states you were talking about, Cleveland, does being an MBE only matter in, for contracts or for partnerships in those states, or does it apply outside of those states even if you're not certified?
It absolutely does not apply. That's what there you go. There's part of that learning curve where we went into an RFP and we said, listen, we're certified. And they came back and said, no, you are not. Not in Maryland, at least. So as an example, no, like it is very region specific. And on top of that, it's not the same. Like in terms of the requiremements to be an MBE, you would think the requirements would be the same whatever region you were in. They're not the same, and they're they each one, they're very territorial about kind of, being part of that and getting into that MBE group with their own set of requirements. This is just something that we've learned. I have team members on it. They bang their head over the wall sometime like, hey, this is different. Pennsylvania is different than New York, is different than Texas. And, what do we do here? So to answer your question, no, it's territorial. It's a lot of work. But there are RFPs that sometimes happen in different states and regions. So there's multiple regions attached to an RFP. So that's something that we learned. That's why I brought up Maryland as an example. They're like, listen, we're in this RFP process. I see that you have Nevada. I see you have California, but in order for us to include you, we don't see Maryland here. Okay, then we have to go and figure that out. And it's a process. That's all I have
Got
to
it.
say.
Okay, we got a comment from one of the members of the audience. When I had my agency, we were a WBE. Because I handled primarily commercial collections, it helped me get contracts with government contractors, not as part of an active RFP, but to help meet their minority business requirements under their contracts.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that's what I
for
was trying to say earlier. Like you look at all these companies like Microsoft, Google, Apple, they all have a person that's there for diversity and for potentially for MBE utilization because they outsource so many functions. They want to have that as a part of their annual reporting of what they're telling their shareholders, investors, that they have a diverse spend, and that becomes very important. And they have allocations for how much they spend or how much they need to spend for diversity and for MBA. So I feel it's just another component of where it becomes useful for everybody in the space.
Yeah, agreed. We're seeing things outside of government agencies, as you talked about, Michael. Ford, Marriott, Johnson and Johnson, Toyota, Kaiser Permanente, CVS, Hilton, like it goes on and on. And as we've done a deep dive into companies utilizing diverse businesses, we're finding exactly not only these people, then where do these people congregate? What are the shows and associations that they go to, so that we're meeting kind of everyone together and helping them meet their requirements. So in regards to the WBE, definitely see that.
there's also a question here from the audience that I've been meaning to get to. What is required to be an MBE or WBE? Is it as simple as having 51% ownership by a minority or a woman plus certification?
Want me to start? I can start with that.
Sure.
So the answer is no, it's not that simple. Uh, there's a host of requirements that come with your organization in terms of how long you're in business, what the financial standing of that particular company is, what your personal financial standing as an MBE owner, looking at your reputation within the field, looking at customers that you're currently working with. It's a process. As I said, it is not as simple as, hey, 51%, you're ready to go. They really do want to see, depending on the type of certification, uh, where the disadvantage may lie and where the opportunities, um, uh, where opportunities exist.
Okay. Again, for everyone watching, if you have a question, by all means, drop in the chat or send it in through the Q&A. One of the areas where maybe there's a big opportunity for companies in the arms space is federal student loans. We've got conversations out there about the sale now. The government's considering, the Department of Education is considering selling defaulted student loans to private companies. This could open up a lot of opportunities and a lot of doors. How can MBE companies help open up these opportunities for companies that might be interested in something like this?
I think at this point, just require, I think it required just doing some footwork, developing some relationships with some of these bigger players in the industry, because I don't think they're going to be selling federal student loans to mom and pop shops, so it's going to
Fair.
require some relationships to kind of get your foot in the door.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a big opportunity there too, where they're going to the government historically has these set asides and programs for MBE or small businesses as well. That's also another category for them if you're below a certain threshold in revenue. So they're going to likely, I mean, who knows? The government's crazy at this point, but you never know what they're going to do or not do. But I could easily see them opening up opportunities where if they sell the debt to a particular debt buyer, they may say that as a part of it, how are you going to, what vendors are you going to utilize to collect that debt? Are they, and what are they may have certain requirements, compliance, of course, but other certifications that are needed, and the MBE could be a part of that.
You think they can make downstream requirements that you have to work with an MBE or so much of the business has to go to an MBE, and if it doesn't, I guess they'll pull those deals back. Is that how it would work?
They could, or they could have an allocation, as you said, Mike. That's usually what they do. They won't say you have to. They'll say, we'd like for those to either be an MBE or that the company that you're utilizing is utilizing an MBE for certain functions as a part of the process. And that may, sway one way or the other which vendors are chosen for that work at some point down the line. So that's where it could be thought about. And that's where the doors start opening because there's trillions of dollars of student loans. It's got to get collected somehow, some way. And then there's a collections component, but there's also a payments component too. And so that may be another piece to the puzzle as well.
Aside from the obvious differences in the categories, I guess I probably should have asked this first, but are there differences between WBE, MBE, and DBE, or is it just different categories of people that those enterprises are, owned by?
We're DBE and MBE certified, and the process was pretty similar for both certifications, but again, as Cleveland was talking about, I guess the process varies from state to state, region to region, when you're going through it.
Yeah, and just really depends on the dynamic of the region, the contract, the RFP. So the quick answer is yes, they're different. They are different certifications that actually take place. They could be similar in practice, but some RFPs will have only a WBE attached to it, not an MBE attached to it. Some will have a DBE and not an MBE. Some will have all three. So it really just depends on, who crafted that RFP, what kind of diversity they're looking in terms of their vendors and suppliers with that particular organization. And that's where the qualification will actually sit.
The economics. Obviously, you mentioned the time investment that goes into getting and maintaining a certification. Is it an expensive process to sort of get that certification just in and of itself, or maybe talk a little bit about how the MBE partnerships can impact the bottom line?
So like I guess expense is going to relate in our scenario, it's going to relate to the number of resources that we allocate. Because it's really, if you just think about an RFP, think about an MBE, like it's just a very long a process of gathering data, information, going back and forth, validating data in order to meet the qualification. And some were easier than others. So the expense is really a human resource expense. that you really have to throw at it, and time. So for us, the initial one that we did, it probably took us 5 to 6 months in California to kind of finalize that one particular certification. We've seen some move as fast as 3 months. That's probably the quickest that we've seen it in terms of the particular regions that we're in. So the answer is yes, it's resource intensive. And then on top of that, like any other certification, you have to maintain it yearly, right? So you have to jump back in, validate all the information again, get that information out, and we find ourselves, 9 months, Q4, here we go again. Let's start this process and get everything validated across the different regions. So the more that we've expanded our reach, the more costly and human resource intensive it is for our organization.
Okay.
If you want to, I can add one other piece on
Yeah, sure.
So that's the cost side of it. Then we look at the profitability side of it. Like, is it worth it? The answer is it really depends on how big the organization is to kind of go through, like I said, all the certs and maintain them. But realistically, I think one of the reasons why we're here and we're doing this is we've done all of this legwork already in the industry. So wherever you're at in the ecosystem now, within collections, payments, uh, whatever entry point, it's easy to partner with a company like ours because we've done it, right? We have these 17 states, and the goal is to have all 50 states ultimately covered to make it easy and make it an easier entry point for our partners and kind of support their entrepreneurial goals.
It's not just, I think, Michael, I think each of you have mentioned this, but I just remember something specific that Michael said. It's not just government opportunities or government contracts that this applies to as well. Like, I think, you invoked Microsoft and Apple, I think, in terms of some of the allocations that they're making, Michael. So it's not just about, it is about not just about looking for government contracts or working with a government entity, but also, some of the clients that you're working with. Promoting your status as an MBE or a WBE or a DBE in an attempt to sort of make sure that they understand where you are and in case they have any programs like that as well, correct?
That's right. It also goes beyond just collections. A lot of the stuff that I started learning about it 20 years ago was actually in the call center space. So inbound customer care, help desk support, IT support. And there were a number of MBE companies that had crossed into the call center space and were leveraging it there. That's where it started. And then that started to then go into collections in other areas that everyone's in on the call. But yeah, it's well beyond government. It's telco, financial services, auto, all the different areas that this industry collects in. There's an MBE component to it at some level.
Does anybody have a sense of how many MBE or DBE or WBE companies there are in the arms space right now?
That is a great question, Mike. I would guess maybe 50 at most. I would say that may be a high number. I don't know. Cleveland, Sean, what do you guys think?
Don't have a clue.
Yeah, probably somewhere in there. I would say for us on the payment side, handful. I'd say count them on the payment side of collections.
Yeah, I don't know anybody on the payment side, other than you guys, that have it from that end of it. I'm sure broadly in every end market you could think of. I mean, there are thousands, but when it comes to just collections, I think it's very narrow. And then when you narrow in Sean, on businesses just like an MBE in traditional first and third party collections, I mean, it's got to be very small across the country.
I'd agree. I'd agree. It's not a topic that's brought up that, I go to a lot of conferences and, you don't see many workshops on, this topic, to give information. And that might be a good suggestion for, some of these conferences that we all attend, that there might be some informational workshops that are included, because like I said, the information was it was hard won for us, but it can definitely be made easier, because we all go to the same conferences, you know.
And part of the certification is there's actual MBE search tools. So part of the cert is that you can go to, for example, it's called the NMSDC website. And that website, you can jump in, look at the certification details for different organizations that, across the broad spectrum, obviously not just collections and payments, but you can find them.
Good information.
Thanks. Just dropped a link in the chat for anybody who wants to get access to that. So what would you consider to be the key elements of a successful MBE partnership?
You want to start, Mike, or you want me to start there, or Sean?
Go ahead.
So elements, I would say one is the first is partner perspective. So we talked about what are these particular organizations looking for, and making sure that you're matching up one-to-one. Really, you need it one-to-one in terms of how that RFP is written and what are the requirements when we're bidding on these particular contracts. So that's number one. Number two, I would say like target industries and vertical channels. So as our partners are coming in, partners like Sean, what are those vertical channels in terms of collections that he's looking to explore? It's really important to understand that there are other channels that are available that you may not be working with. And we brought them up earlier. Government and municipalities is one, but there's transportation, there's education, there's telco, there's healthcare, there's tax and collections. So really for us, vertical industries and opening vertical industries, not only to us, but to our partner, is important. And then the third piece of it, obviously, is that I said it earlier, we will help meet the requirements. If that MBE requirement is set within that particular contract, RFP vertical, whether it's like as a government or private. And I think that those would probably be for us the top three things in terms of prospecting business and it being successful for someone.
Sean, Michael, any other elements that you would add to that list? What makes a successful partnership?
I think he was pretty thorough with that.
I mean, I could really simplify it: land, expand, and maintain. That's what we always talk about within our organization. So identifying those new businesses or existing, try to expand within those verticals. And then, as Mike said, these certifications will allow you to maintain those RFPs for probably longer periods of time if that checkbox is sitting in that particular contract. Which, what is it? What are we all looking for? Lifetime value of our customers, increasing that LTV. So.
Yeah.
So if it's not a nationwide certification, if it's regional, if it's state, if it's local in some cases, how do you figure out where to start? Do you look at where you've got most of your business or most of your clients are coming from, and that would be is that the logical place to start? Or do you look at where your office is? Is that the logical place to start? How do you kind of, for people who are maybe considering or now looking to go down this road, how do you get the ball rolling?
There's the strategic side of it. So I know Michael will have some probably points, and Sean as well. Um, for us, it was letting actually our existing customer base know that we had this certification. So for us, it was announcing this to our base. And then once we announced it to our base, information came back that our customers came back and said, you know what? This is helpful to us. What states are you currently in today? And we announced it when we just had only done California. And we didn't start in California. There you go. Like, even though we did the certification in California, that's not where our first contractor bid came from. So for us, it was letting people know, hey, we could provide this service. And I think every Payscout partner, customer should, while we're here, is do the same thing, and we can help them, kind of do that with uh, getting the right material and information out to their customer base. I think that's the easiest place to start. I would say if companies are engaged in RFP processes, now knowing this information, you have a partner to work with. And then I would say the one area that would be interesting, I would say for anyone, by the way, this is MBE or not, is looking at the conferences and networking. So actually going to the NMSDC, national conference. You don't have to be a minority to go. You know what I mean? If you want to do business and you want to network, you go and you find out what's there. Going to business diversity leadership summits. So there's different ways to kind of expand networks, understand even why companies are doing this. Why is it important to diversify supply chain and vendors based on the demographics that you're serving? Everyone has, they have their own reasons for this type of inclusion. So that's what I would say. I would say, one, push this out to your network. Two, then look at these trade shows and networks that are available to engage in, to see where those opportunities lie. Because what's the point? The point is to take my product and service that's really good and marry it to this company's need. And if Sean and Cleveland's organizations can help make that an easy transition to marry your service, then that's what we're here to do.
I think it's just all about value creation. When you look at these contracts and you look at what people are bidding for, it's all about making yourself the most attractive vendor you can to a government agent or to a Fortune 500, Fortune 1000. And I think the more that companies in the industry can be aware of other businesses that have these certifications, I can't see how that's a lose. I think it can only be a value enhancer in them obtaining additional business that they may not be getting opportunities in today because they weren't aware of these opportunities too.
Yeah, definitely agree. The more boxes we can check. I mean, it goes back to our college applications. Why did you join the club? Why did you do this? And you put everything down to be more attractive to get selected. So definitely agree, Michael.
So let's look forward. We talked a little bit about student loans. We've talked a little bit about government opportunities, government contracts. Beyond government, are there other, where else would an MBE be helpful to companies in this space?
Healthcare is another big area, right? You got companies that do rev cycle services in all different regions of this country. And I know Cleveland, you guys do stuff in healthcare too. Sean, I don't know about if you do, but that segment, especially for underserved communities in certain parts of our country, there's definitely an MBE opportunity there as well.
And piggyback that with education, probably the two big pieces. And I'm sure Michael can jump in. It's interesting, our industry, everyone knows the cycles, right? The cycles of debt that come into the industry that ultimately is the pipeline to be collectible. And we are seeing, I'll let Michael jump in because he's the one that expressed this to me in terms of the debt that's coming in on the consumer side. But Michael, put you on the spot, but
Yeah, Cleveland, it's the delinquency
educating.
volumes ain't going down, right? It's across the board. You're seeing more and more volume across the industry, and that's the technology side is opening up more engagement with those consumers ever before. Like you remember in '08, we didn't have the tech stack, we didn't have AI, we didn't have what we have now. And so that's beginning to open things up. And so the creditors, the banks, the health hospitals, they're all looking for vendors that are thinking tech first, compliance, all those things. And I think that's the other big piece of the value driver for our industry is that we've got a few years of a window where we're probably going to see a lot more volume. And that means these RFPs that are coming out are going to be even more needed for the right vendors to be at the table supporting their collections activity.
Sean, where do you see opportunity?
Well, our company started in education, and that's where we've, spent a lot of time. And I think that we've not used the MBE, we've not leveraged it to its full potential, I guess you could say. I got a lot of information, good information, just from being on this webinar on different ways and different, honestly, different ways to utilize the MBE, because we've had it, every year we renew it, but now it kind of comes time to, application, so I've gotten a lot of good information on ways that we can, kind of expand our network and, get some value, bring some value, actually, to partners and get some value out of the MBE certification.
Yeah, you're not the only one, Sean. I have buddies that are veterans, and they got their veterans. That's another category, like
Yep.
veteran business enterprise, and they came to me and like, hey, we have this certification, we're ready to go, and very similar, like strategically, talk to them a year later, we have it, we're ready to go, and then 2 years later, we have it, we're ready to go, and
Yeah,
so I'm not the only one. So
been there. Yep.
sorry about that, Mike. I know you're getting ready to say something.
No, I'm good.
No, Mike Gibbs.
Mike Gibb.
I think Mike's frozen.
Yeah, looks like a good screenshot. Oh, there he's moving.
Sorry, I feel like my internet provider is doing this thing where it likes to remind me how much power it has over me by just intermittently cutting out my connection for like 45 seconds every few minutes. Okay, Comcast, I understand. I owe my life, my life relies on you. You can keep my internet going.
Comcast has got an MBE diversity spend too. So there you go.
So we've got just a couple of minutes left here. What I wanted to do though is talk a little bit more about the partnership process. Because Sean, you mentioned there is sort of like a formalized aspect to it. If you have companies who aren't MBEs but want to partner with an MBE, how do you go? How would you advise companies kind of go about doing that? Looking, seeking out those companies, going through this partnership process. What types of companies are you looking for? Maybe we can talk a little bit about that before we wrap up.
Yeah, from our perspective, I think you brought it up earlier. It's really talking to us about once you have this information, how you can be engaged. We have our relationship managers that are here that can help go through that process. We actually have an official PayScout MBE seal that our partners can utilize. also kind of the minority business enterprise certification that comes with it. So those are things that our partners can feature that seal on their website, in their marketing materials, highlighting partnerships, including decks, proposals, one-pagers, kind of across the board. So we have kind of the internal mechanism once you're partnered with us to responsibly be able to go out into the market and show that you're partnered with an MBE certified company to make it much easier to show your potential customers and existing customers what you have to offer.
Okay. Before we wrap up, what I want to do is ask each of you to share what you think the most important takeaway is from today's webinar. If you want people to walk away remembering one thing, what is that one thing that you want everybody to remember? Michael, we'll start with you.
I would have an open mind to the MBE process or MBE companies and learn about it and see and talk to your clients and look at the RFPs and see what boxes you need to get checked and see if the MBE is something that's needed for your next RFP you bid on.
Okay. Thank you. Sean?
Takeaway. For me, I think it was just, application. Once you go through the process, figuring out how to, leverage the MBE, and just like some of the information I've gotten here, with, conferences and just expanding the network and letting people know, that we do have the certification and the benefit and the value that we can bring to, their organization, through the certification. So for us, that was a big takeaway, application and ways to apply, the certification.
Love
it. Excellent. Thank you. Cleveland?
Real simple. We've done the work. We're certified in a lot of states, and we just make it easy for you to be able to engage in these contracts. So the takeaway really is if you partner with us, we're going to make your life easy when it comes to working within these checkboxes.
Excellent. I dropped a link again. Payscout.com is a website. Well, Cleveland, Michael, Sean, on behalf of everybody who's watching and listening and myself, thank you so much for being here. I know we all appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to share information on this important topic and one we've never really addressed before and should have. So thanks for taking care of that and for sharing your insights with everybody today. Cleveland, I want to thank you and everybody again at Payscout for sponsoring today's webinar. Please check them out at payscout.com. Everybody who's watching and listening, whether you're watching this live or watching a recording of this, thank you so much for making us part of your day. We always appreciate it. If you're watching us live, we're back later today. We're back in an hour of the webinar at 3 o'clock where we're talking about the high performance collector, the habits, metrics, and coaching that go into driving results. If you haven't signed up for that, you can, there's a link in the chat, or you can find the link in the events calendar at accountrecovery.net for that, or for tomorrow's webinar where we're talking about how to teach collectors to be good communicators. We would love to see you back for those. Until then, actually, everyone watching, thank you again for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing everybody soon. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.